Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to January 26th City Council meeting. Meeting is being recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's order suspending certain provisions under the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the City Council during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you are calling in on a telephone or your cell phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching on a computer or device, there is a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications or the public hearing to be recognized to speak. I will repeat that during the meeting, so if anybody forgets, I will keep reiterating this during the meeting. In no particular order, I'm going to call the councilors from the top left to my bottom right of the screen. In attendance, we have myself, Councilor LeBlanc. We have Councilor Gilman. We have Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Cox, Councilor Nolan, Councilor Holmgren, Councilor Pett, Councilor O'Hara, and Councilor Memhard. Also in attendance this evening, we have our mayor, Mayor Taken. We have our DPW director, Mike Hale. We have our building inspector, Bill Sanborn. We have our CAO, Nicole Kaiser. We have our HR director, Holly DeWillow. We have our planning director, Greg Catamatori. Let's see here, I don't want to forget anybody. And we have our city clerk, Joanne Sinos. So that being said, Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
First order of business is oral communication.
Under,
Johnstone.
what's that?
I'm sorry, Gary Johnstone, I see is on also.
All right, I don't see Gary. Oh, there we are. We have our one of our assessors, Gary Johnstone. Thank you, Barry. So during oral communications, the
No, it's
public will
not
have
my
every
nomination.
can we, and we have our city solicitor, Chip Hayes. Can I ask everybody to mute themselves, please, just during this? So during oral communications, the public shall have every opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communication shall allow any resident who has been requested or who has a request or complaint in any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within 2 weeks prior relative to disposition of the same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the city council. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and the council president shall not allow complaints to as individual performance. All right, do we have anybody that would like to speak under oral communications? We have, hold on one second. Joanne, can you make me a co-host, please? Joanne, can you make me a co-host?
You're all set.
All right, thank you. All right, we have oral communications. We have Ellen. Ellen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, name and address for the record, please.
Ellen Lehman, 16 Great Hill Road, Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit about the firing range, very short. Chief Connolly at the last meeting mentioned that the police department did not have to use non-lead bullets for practice when they ran out, that they could use lead bullets. I'm concerned about the environment. This is unacceptable. I've read a lot about water contamination from lead bullets. And if lead leaches into the area, it could kill trees and damage the water supply. To me, the cost to remediate lead damage in the water supply and the possible litigation to the city could cost a great deal more than what the police department is currently spending to practice elsewhere. There has to be a better solution. So that's my comment about that. I'm really concerned about polluting our water supply, which is so very, very important to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Just a little point of information. We are going to have this back before ordinance and administration to review this.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you. All right, next we have Grant. Grant, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Great, thank you. It's Grant Clark, 279 Concord Street.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to speak briefly with respect to the firing range as well. I won't repeat the comments that I made during regular business at the last council meeting, but I just wanted to give you, the council, a sense of the community right now, and that is that the opposition to this in West Gloucester is extraordinarily strong, not only in numbers, but in intensity. And I hope that when you're considering this at O&A and at future meetings, you'll consider that. And I think you'll probably be hearing from a lot of people. But just to summarize, the notion of upwards of 75,000 rounds of mixed ammunition every year, potentially a total of 8 weeks of total usage during high season per the ordinance, depriving the community of a major recreational asset during those periods. Of course, the disturbance over a large area of West Gloucester, the noise issue, and the manner in which the revised ordinance was adopted back, I think, in April of last year, it really has led to a serious erosion of trust and confidence in West Gloucester. And we really do hope that you will look at all potential options here and seriously consider the opposition of the community. And I know you'll be hearing from a lot of my friends and neighbors, but thank you for your consideration of this.
No problem, Grant. Thank you for reaching out. Appreciate it. All right, we have Ann. Ann, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Name and address for the record, please.
Ann Stevens, 10 Winter Haven Road, Gloucester.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
I wanted to speak about the firing range in West Gloucester also. It's on Forest Lane at Haskell Pond Reservoir. I just wanted to point out that on the Cape Ann Trail Stewards website, there is a page for the whole trail system around the reservoir, which they call the Haskell Pond Trail Loop. The subtitle for this page, for this area, reads, "Permanently protected by the City of Gloucester." And I just want to ask, is this protecting this watershed, the trail system, and the hundreds of outdoor enthusiasts who frequent this area all year long, to allow a firing range on the same property with so far no signage but 1 or 2 8x10 small printed notices and no perimeter barrier or warning for half of May, half of October, and every Wednesday in between? Thank you for listening to my question.
Thank you, Ann. And we'll get an answer for you within the next couple of weeks from the mayor's office.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jean. Jean, can you hear me? Jean? All right, I'm going to move on. I'm going to leave Jean here for now, and I'm going to go on to Deb. Oh, hold on 1 second. Deb, can you hear me?
I can.
Name and
Can you hear
address. Yes, I can. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Debbie Holland. I live at 11 Jebica Lane.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I live approximately 8 miles from the shooting range, depending on how the crow flies. And I can tell you that far away, it is so jarring when they are firing. This is not a decibel question. This is a peace of mind question. I didn't move to West Gloucester to hear gunshots this often. And we heard them when they were firing. We could hear them when walking around Dykes Pond. It seems to me very short-sighted of a city that's trying to promote tourism, to promote people to come and enjoy our waterways, our beaches, our trails, to then pepper them with the sound of gunshots. It's bad enough in Dogtown. To add a whole nother area where people are going to be subjected to this really doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. All right. I'm going to try Jean again. Hold on. Jean, can you hear me?
Yes, this is Rick.
Oh, hey, Rick, how are you? Name and address for the record, please.
Rick Grobe, 17 Lincoln Street,
Thank you. Go ahead.
about the shooting range. I bought my house in 1982, and it was a barn that belonged to the Harvey Farm on Lincoln Street and is next to the antique Haskell House. It was a quiet neighborhood until 2008, when the range started being used to train other towns and the Coast Guard during the spring and summer. It was unbearable and forced us to hire a lawyer. So here we are 11 years later, dealing with the same issue. We respect the police and their need to fulfill their state mandated training requirements, but this is not the way to accomplish this. This is definitely not the right location at the watershed. It is being placed in the middle of a major recreational area. So far, we have not received clear facts on type of ammunition or the number of shots to be fired in a day. The range has been used without signage. One sign was posted that said, "Do not enter." No indication that there were guns being fired. A Facebook post stated that the range was being used outside of the ordinance dates to make up for our October 7th meeting at the range. We had to call our counselor at large to stop this. We are asked to trust, but not included in any decisions before or after. We were not represented in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next we have Dennis. Dennis, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Dennis McGurk, 283 Concord Street.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Comment on the firing range and a few things in general. There's a pattern here. And the firing range is another example of the city not following its own procedures and not being honest and transparent. As my previous speaker said, the neighborhood's already gone through this, and all of a sudden they're going through it again. There's no consideration of safety. You get trails, you have people walking around. No consideration of the environment, and again, procedures and common sense. And you look at this, I just get the feeling that West Gloucester is being dumped on. I mentioned the word dump. You look at Marshall's farm stand, I mentioned this before, it is a dump. We already have one in West Gloucester. It's out of sight where it belongs, and it's only 1 mile from Marshall's. This site is not needed, it's illegal, it's an eyesore, and the city allows it to exist and grow. I've commented in the past on the cluster development. Thinking you can cram 12 houses on a beautiful piece of ledge sitting over a perennial stream and a vernal pond, how can you let that happen? We're a target for developers, where we seem to be the dumping ground for anything. The city doesn't seem to mind what goes on over here. So I don't feel the city is protecting the residents and the neighborhoods, and you're leaving it up to us, the residents, to spend enormous amounts of time and money to defend ourselves from the developers and from our own city. Hopefully, we're going to see the light and things will change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Next, we have Marianne. Marianne, can you hear me?
I can. Thank you, Steve.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Mary Ann Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. Last Wednesday, I attended the school public forum to give the public an update on everything that's been going on for the school project. I noticed prior to that meeting that there was on the calendar for the following evening, Traffic Commission agenda. It said traffic study during Whittier. It did not talk about the school. It didn't state whether it was school related or not. I attended both meetings, the public forum, and I asked the architects, I directed the question to the architects, whether it was related to the school project. One of the architects said that she didn't realize that the meeting was the next night, but assumed that it must have if it was on the agenda. She also stated that the Traffic Commission received the traffic study several months ago, and that they had not been having regular meetings due to COVID. Well, the next night I attended the Traffic Commission meeting, and I spoke with the Traffic Commission, and found out that they received the study weeks ago on December 4th. I too am disappointed that where is the transparency? Where's the transparency in everything? Week after week, you see me here, I speak about it. I'm really disappointed. You are the people that voted on this. You have the final vote on what happened. And you didn't even have the traffic commission. No one had the traffic commission's input to this entire multi-million-dollar project. I'm really disappointed. I totally agree with all the people that have spoken before me in regards to the firing range. Where's the transparency? Where is this? It's supposed to be the people to the government, not the government to the people. I'm really disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And just for clarification, this was a citywide vote. This wasn't just a city council vote, and the people spoke, and the people were heard. So this wasn't just a city council vote. So I just would like to correct you on that. This wasn't a city council vote. This was a vote of the people. Stephen, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Steve Noel, 567 Essex Ave.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I purchased one of the old houses and back 3 years ago. And I think if you're familiar with the property, you could see that house was falling apart. But having really the desire to preserve history in the neighborhood and own a beautiful old home. I was told that, in the when we were signing that there used to be a gun range, but that was moved out 10 years ago and wouldn't happen again. And you can imagine my surprise when I started to hear shots. In past meetings, I know the chief has said that they would make every effort to notify people when there were off days of shooting. Last Wednesday, I heard shots, and it wasn't an emergency. I wasn't going to call 911, but I did go to the Facebook page and put in a message asking about whether or not this was a designated day for shooting because it was a Wednesday. I got an automated response saying that it's not an emergency, call 911. They said they'll get back to me when they can. It's now been 7 days and I haven't even received so much as a response. So where are the notifications being sent for when there are off days shooting, or just an acknowledgement of a response? And I think that distrust with the past chief is kind of giving everyone here caution about the current chief's intentions. And there's a lot of talk, but I'd really like to know where the notifications are for those scheduled shooting days. I couldn't find anything on the Facebook site. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, we have Diana. Diana, can you hear me?
Yes.
Name
Can you
and
hear me?
address- Yes, name and address for the record, please.
Diana Clark, 279 Concord, Gloucester.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I would really hope that the city council looks again at the properties in Lexington and what's going on there. They are looking for towns to join them in the effort for shooting indoor and outdoor ranges. And I don't see why we can't do that, or why we can't use the range that's above the police station. I just don't understand that. There is one sitting there. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Diana. Up next, we have Gitama. Hopefully I said that right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Gitama Ann Kinigstein. I live at 18 Forest Lane.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So ironically, last Wednesday, I was walking to the dam at Haskell Pond, and I did look to see if there was any signage there, and I didn't see any. And I went to the pond, to the dam, and I was walking there, and all of a sudden I started to hear gunshots. And the gunshots were actually not coming from the shooting range. This is last Wednesday, which was previously mentioned. They were coming more in the direction of probably Essex or Manchester. But I walked there for a while, and when I left the gate that closes off the road to Haskell Pond and the reservoir. The woman who lived in the house on the very bottom of Forest Lane said to me, "Were you just at the dam?" And I said, "Yeah, I was." And she said, "But there was shooting going on there." And I said to her that actually I had heard some gunshots. I didn't hear as many as she had heard, but it wasn't at the dam. But again, the lack of understanding. I also looked all over the city council and the police website, the city of Gloucester, to find where would the posting of when this is back in October. I was looking for when the postings would be as to when the shooting range was going to be used. They said 15 days in October. And I couldn't find any information posted as to where this would be. And I have to say, as I said last time at the last meeting, that I was really surprised when we saw the DPW trucks going to the dam and, leaving piles of dirt there. And we found out that they were going to be starting a shooting range again without any notice. I am a retired person. I'm home a lot, as are many of the other people who live in this area, including the people on, I could say all of the houses on Forest Lane, except for the young couple on the very bottom, are retired people. And we are home all the time, especially now during this pandemic. So the quality of life is very impacted, and in a negative way, as is the value of my house. And it really upsets me. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Just a little point of information. It is duck season, so people are out on the Essex Marsh and in the West Gloucester Marsh hunting duck. Maybe you heard some gunshot from the marsh hunting duck, which is totally legal. Next we have Chris. Name and address for the record, please. Chris Sabatowski, can you hear me? All right, I'll leave Chris here for a minute and we'll go to Robin. Robin, can you hear me?
Hello, I will have Chris talk right now. Chris, can you hear me? Hello?
All right, Robin, I'm running the meeting, so you're on the floor right now. So if you'd like to speak, now's your time.
Okay, my
Go
husband
ahead.
Chris is here and available though.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Chris Sabatowski, 20 Forest Lane.
Go ahead.
Okay, last fall when the shooting started, I was outside. I had to run in and hide from the noise, and I still wasn't here. I still was hearing it. I had a fantasy that I would get a sound truck and stream in front of the houses and offices of the elected officials who basically put this upon us. I really realized that, one, is a fantasy. Two, that they would probably call the police. That is much more defense than the residents of West Gloucester have. Besides this, we have the other issues of pollution, of loss and degradation of recreation ground, and loss of home values. And if I sound bitter, I apologize, but I am. Thank you. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Chris. Robin, would you like to speak?
Hello,
Go ahead. Name and address for the record, please.
Robin Hosking, 20 Forest Lane.
Go ahead.
Does anyone of the city council live around us, live in West Gloucester? Do you? Because how would you like to listen to what sounds like machine guns constantly? It's over 74 1,000 rounds of bullets. Okay? If you even watch a firing range with someone being killed and listen to the sound of that, that is what it's like. It's alarming. It's disgusting. The woods in West Gloucester that I live near are used by citizens from Magnolia, from all over the place. And yes, okay, you know what I always say? There's the easy way. The easy way, Chief Conley used the right down the street. That's beautiful area. That's the easy way. There's the easy way and there's the right way. Please do the right way. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. All right, was there anybody else who'd like to speak? Ann, can you hear me? Name and address for the record, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy,
Oh, thank you. Amy
Thank you.
Donnelly, 9
Yeah.
Sumner Street.
go ahead.
So I am also speaking on with concerns about the shooting range, but I do want to thank the council for revisiting this issue and revisiting the ordinance. I had spoke at the last meeting and had huge concerns about both the safety and the noise. And then after listening to the question and answer session that you had with the chief, my concerns about the lead rose exponentially when he spoke of the number of shots and rounds that would be fired, and he said he would not stop training if they could not find lead-free bullets. So the ordinance has no protections for our backup watershed, our water supply for the city of Gloucester. And we all know what lead in a water supply for a city can do. And the levels of lead that will harm a child are very low. And that is usually fairly irreversible. So that conversation brought lead to the forefront of my concerns, equal with noise and safety. So thank you for revisiting this ordinance. And as the last speaker said, I'm reminded of the expression, fast, cheap, good, pick two. Let's not let Gloucester be the fast, cheap choice. Let's look for the good choice here. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Let's see, we have Ben, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
Ben Wildrick, 46 Sumner Street. I've been hiking and biking the woods around Forest Street for 15 years. And I have noticed in the past year since the pandemic that the number of families with children and dogs has increased exponentially. And the fact that this site is being considered for a firing range makes absolutely no sense to me, because if those numbers had been studied, if data had been collected about community use of this area, it'd be obvious that an alternative would be a better solution. I agree with everything that's been said by my neighbors, and I'm deeply, deeply concerned by this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the oral communications? Seeing none, I'd like to request through the mayor at this point. We have Gary Johnstone with us this evening. He's the assessor's office. Through the mayor, Gary, can we get assessments on some of the houses that are around the Cape Ann Sportsman's Club, like Reservoir Road and Cherry Street? And I'm curious to see their valuations as being so close to the gun range. Can you provide that information for our next ordinance administration, please? Because we've heard quite a bit this evening about the valuations of the house being next to the gun range. And I know the Cape Ann Sportsman's Club is in a tight-knit neighborhood. And I'm curious to see what the valuations of these homes that are direct abutters to the Sportsman's Club is. So through the mayor, I'd like that information at the next request. Madam Clerk, can I have the next order of business,
Counselor?
please? Yes.
Council President, can we also get an evaluation of the downtown properties that have to deal with the train horn every single day, every hour? Granted, it's not happening right now, but to also see if that is effective to the noise if their valuations are lower because of it. And I think every neighborhood has its own problem area. If any other counselors know of any that are problematic that could cause a dip in home value, if you could also piggyback on this. Thank you.
Thank you. If you had already spoken during oral communications, we can't let you speak again. I'm sorry. You guys, everybody that spoke was just about up to their 3 minutes. So Stephen, I know you got your hand up to speak again, but you've already spoken once. Just so you guys know, I live with less than a quarter of a mile from the Sportsman's Club, where they're allowed to shoot every single day, and it's not that loud. I don't hear it hardly ever. But anyway, we're not going to go down that road this evening. I'm just, Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
The next order of business is presentations from Greg Ketamatori, Planning Director, and Judy Barnett, Planning Group LLC, Planning Board's initiation of amendments to Gloucester Zoning Ordinance Section 511, inclusionary housing requirements.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Go ahead.
Okay. Can everyone see that? Yes? Excellent. Thank you for having me this evening. Greg Ketamatori, I'm the Planning Director. With me is also Judy Barrett from Barrett Consulting Group. And typically, when zoning amendments are initiated by the Planning Board, very often they go on your consent agenda and are referred out. And in your packet, you should have received a memo from the Planning Board, a initiation memo from the Planning Board, as well as a proposed amendment to Section 511, the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. And in that memo, they also suggested that it might be helpful for everybody involved that's been involved in the housing production plan process and tracking it, and really bringing everybody kind of back up to speed to where we are in the work that's been conducted, to have a brief presentation to you upon the referral of the proposed amendment. So Judy and I are going to kind of tag team a little bit. Hopefully it won't be too long, but just wanted to touch on a couple of the high points of how we arrived at where we are this evening, which I think was much anticipated, maybe delayed a little bit because of COVID and also other things. But we're very happy to kind of be here this evening. And I think the Planning Board was very pleased to start this process of really starting to adjust housing policy in Gloucester to really try to meet the needs of the community that were identified. And there's my slides not advancing. So quickly, I'll overview some of that work that's brought us to date, which includes the housing production plan, as well as a key thing that kind of put us over the top to kind of start moving on things, which is working with Judy Barrett with a technical assistance grant from Mass Housing called Planning for Housing Production. Talk a little bit, kind of a refresher on the housing production plan goals, a little bit about the scope specifically we have Judy working on with us, and then touch on, I think, a couple of important things for everybody to kind of go into this with eyes wide open about affordability, what that means, and for who. And then I will hand it off to Judy if there's time, because I know she has another public hearing this evening as well, to talk a little bit about some of the other efforts that will be coming forward. The Planning Board thought it was important that each of these potential policies and amendments go forward on their own, because they obviously require their own public hearing. They are very varied in what they will accomplish under the umbrella of increasing housing in general and also affordable housing. But also wanted you to understand this first amendment was really the priority of the board to move forward with. But again, not losing sight that there's several other things that will be coming your way in the next several months. So you'll remember way back, many of you were on the council. There are a couple of new faces that were not back in 2018. We worked with MAPC to develop a housing production plan that had some really key important data sets, for the city to understand at that moment in time, and I don't think things have changed dramatically, what our real housing needs are. A lot of demographic data was presented, a lot of income levels were presented, and in the context of the greater Boston region, which is important, which I'll talk about. The goals and policies that were set in that plan, I think, were really the product of a public process. This wasn't MAPC coming in and saying, hey, these are the things that we always stick in these plans. You know, this is going to sit on a shelf. It was really vetted by the planning board as well as the city council, and had very good public participation at the meetings that we had surrounding it. So it's truly a community housing production plan. And the strategies were very clearly outlined, and we have used that, myself, Judy, the planning board, prior to the planning board, a working group that included members of the city council, the zoning board, the housing trust, advocacy groups around housing, and others that are really focused on this, including the Gloucester Housing Authority represented. And you know, so that's been just a tremendous blueprint to come right back to you with these proposals. And I think I remember sitting at a P&D meeting 3 years ago and saying, okay, we're adopting this. We're all agreeing that these are the directions we should go in, and we'll be back with proposals, and here we are. So some of the highlights, again, this isn't new information. Like most of the communities in Massachusetts, we have an aging population. With pretty staggering projections of having 43% of the population being 60 or older by 2030, which is not far away. And geez, I'll probably be in that demographic. Population is likely to decline, yet household formation rates are on the rise. So we do need more housing because we are having smaller families. We're having people that are living longer, staying in their homes. And so there's definitely a need for additional housing units. Before we had any of this discussion in any given year, you would see that we would have maybe 60 to 70 units of new housing being produced every year as people try to build their dream. Affordability is a really important topic, as we discussed it in the context of the production plan, and as you've seen projects come forward, whether in a 40B or with inclusionary, there's a real disconnect between what's defined as affordability and Gloucester's demographics. And that's not unique to Gloucester. It's across the region because we are lumped into a very large region for those statistics that are generating what determines affordability. So we know the median income in the region is considerably higher than that of Gloucester's. I won't go through each one of these goals of the housing production plan. Again, the big theme is, what can we do as a community to really start to try to better meet the needs of the citizens? Those that live here, but then also those that might want to move here as well. You know, I see goal number 2 is meeting that 10% of inclusionary housing or subsidized inventory. I think that should have been pushed much lower on the list of goals. It will be a side effect as we try to strive towards increasing affordability. But again, it's really trying to think about the now and what we can do in the short and long term to provide for people that are here now. It goes further into the very specifics that turn into strategies, which is really reviewing and looking through our ordinance at how we can affect change in creating affordability, but also creating options for people. I often tell people that, you know, I kind of feel sometimes like a, maybe not a therapist, maybe, but as people's lives change, they come in and they're looking for options for their property. And, you know, for the most part, we have a fairly limited number of options of how we can use property for residential use. We do have special permitting for multifamily, and that goes a lot further than a lot of the communities in the region. But there are other things that we can be doing to work with our existing housing stock and really kind of tell also the development community what we want to see. So enough of the housing production plan goals. I think you know those. So specifically, we partnered with Judy Barrett and this technical assistance grant from Mass Housing to specifically look at our inclusionary ordinance, which is the focus of the current proposal before you to refer. Look at the potential barriers to accessory dwelling units. As you know, we have a in-law apartment ordinance right now, and that could really create a lot of options for people moving forward if we consider accessory dwelling units. Really try to simplify how we permit two-family is another topic. We need to have consistency, and that's just there's a situation where in some instances we don't treat all two families the same. Adjust dimensional regulations that in many ways discourage three-family, where we have a preponderance of it right now in the community. There are some things like minimum lot size that really knock out most of the lots in those districts for consideration for three-family, yet they're very present in those districts. And then looking at facilitating mixed use downtown. We've had some successes through the 40B process, but better defining what we want to see for our downtown, which would include residential use. It's an important component of the downtown. It also reinforces the retail components of the downtown and the services in the downtown. So that's something that will be coming in the coming months. And also specifically looking at our train station area. So I wanted to get back to just a little bit about this affordability discussion. We are lumped into, along with about 110 communities, into a metropolitan statistical area by HUD. And that defines affordability for us in the eyes of the federal government as well as the eyes of the state, and which is also tied to the 40B process. So you can see right now, the area median income for that 110 communities is around $119,000. And currently it's about 65 in Gloucester. So we're basically using formulas based on that 119 that are really creating a kind of disparity between what people locally feel would be affordable and what the state sees as affordable. And this next table has, what those income limits are. Again, that 80% is also adjusted for household size. So you see that when a unit comes online as affordable under the 40B process, or potentially under other programs through the CDBG program, the maximum household income for an individual is $67,400, which is above our median income for the community. So that's the tale of how do we start to really better define what affordability is in Gloucester, and how do we create units that will start satisfying that need. And below, there's a table of the rents that would be the result of those income levels of what would be available for a studio, a one bedroom, a two bedroom, and those are the rates, and they're very high. And I think while there's been permitting processes that have introduced units like this, members of the public, members of boards have said, this doesn't seem like it makes any sense. These rents are too high. I thought it was also important, I think, because we've had so much discussion about affordability and who it's for. Excuse me, could you please? Sorry, I'm in my kitchen. I think it was important also for people to recognize, who these people are that definition of affordability is creating housing for. And so these are statistics from the Bureau or from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for Massachusetts. And each one of these categories of jobs have median income levels that completely, equate with that affordability level of $67,000 or the 80% AMI. So I think we all know people that have these jobs. Some of us might have these jobs. It may be younger people that are starting out. And again, remember, these are median levels. So there are people in these career paths that make less, make more. But I want to be very clear that when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about our friends, neighbors, family members, and maybe someone that's retired from a career and has started a second career. in a job maybe that is not their initial calling, and they're in these income levels. So it's important that we continue to find housing for people with this need. And then I thought I would just talk a little bit about what we already have and what we've accomplished, not only in recent history, but also from projects past. We currently have 105 or so deed restricted units, with another 60 coming on in the next year with recent developments, and actually even over 100 based on some recent permitting. And that brings us at about 7.57%. Again, not at that 10%. And while it's something that we will continually track, it's important that, again, we're starting to satisfy the local need. I thought it would also be helpful just quickly to see, what's under construction and in development in the quote affordable area. We have the Halyard apartments that are going to be starting to have tenants in the next month or two. That's 30 units at 80% AMI. Again, that first table of income levels starting at around $67,000 for an individual. Harbor Village with 30 units has deeper affordability at 60% and 30%. And then the most recently permitted senior affordable housing, the redevelopment of the Y on Middle Street, will also be at 60 and 30. This is what those kind of translate again for the Halyard apartments in terms of rents for a studio, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom. And then again, they will have those maximum income levels for folks that are looking to rent in those apartments. Harbor Village, you can see there's a delta of about $300 or so per kind of class of apartment, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom. And those income levels, they report both a maximum income level, but also a minimum to make sure that folks that are in those apartments will be able to sustain themselves with the rents that are being proposed. Which brings us to the proposal this evening. And again, this was outlined pretty well in the transmittal memo from the planning board, but I thought I'd just go quickly through some of the high points of the proposed amendments to the inclusionary housing requirements. We will be the proposal is to drop the threshold of the number of units that projects will start to have to in some way address affordable housing down to 6 units. Projects up to 9 units, there's this window between 6 and 9, will have to provide 10% of the units as affordable, which really translates to 1. Projects of 10 units or more would provide 15%. I will also note that there is a difference in the way we will round, so that will actually kind of move around between 15 and 20%, depending upon the number of units in a project. We'd also be excluding certain types of housing in this proposal. And that's something that in public hearings and also at the P&D level, I can let Judy talk a little bit more about her experience as well. But there are some instances where the proposed use is complicated by potentially trying to introduce affordability as well, at least by mandate or requirement. On-site will be required for 10 units or greater, but there's also the consideration of a realistic option for an in lieu payment that will be, the figure that would have to be provided is tied to local median sales. And lastly, to address deeper affordability, again, all of these requirements are definitely a cost to a development. And so again, you can imagine if you're asking for deeper affordability, that will be a greater cost to a development, in which case the number of units that would need to be provided would be less. So there is an option for 10% to be provided at 60% area median, or available to 60% area median income households. And I'll close off my section with just a comparative. I kind of just walked through it. The existing ordinance has an 8-unit threshold, which we would be dropping to 6. 15% affordability is required in the existing, and we have this tiered approach based on project size and also whether or not someone provides units at deeper affordability. We currently have an in lieu provision, which we've all had a wonderful experience with trying to interpret and apply. And again, the payment, even if you got beyond the economic hardship that had to be demonstrated, was a smaller number that folks felt needing to be more meaningful and useful to the community to leverage other projects potentially. So there's a clear definition of when someone can elect to use an in lieu payment to comply with the ordinance, and there's a clear calculation of what that figure would be. The existing ordinance is for all residential housing types, and there will be some exclusions for specific uses. And there's also a great expansion of definitions. So I'll leave it at that in terms of kind of introduction to this, to bring everybody back to where we were a couple of years ago. And this is the product of that work. I really appreciate the dedication of those that worked on the working group, as well as the planning board. Spent a lot of time on this, a lot of discussion and debate. So it will go through the process upon your referral. And then I thought I would hand it over to Judy to just talk a little bit about the other efforts and her work with the city so far, if she's still on. And I think she has about 8 minutes.
She is, Greg. Thank you.
I
Judy?
do. I have 7 minutes, but we'll make the best we can of this time.
Thank you. Go
That was
ahead.
a great introduction, Greg. I have to tell you, I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the city on this. A lot of times I get called in to work with communities on affordable housing when everybody's mad at each other. And so it was really nice to come into a project where the city actually had a sense of what it wanted to do, and it had a new housing production plan that kind of laid out a course of action that that in some ways made this project, both delightful and in a lot of ways much easier. So, just sort of thinking about what the plan said, and then what the approach to mass housing, which paid for our work, has said is, what were we trying to get at here? Well, the housing production plan called for these things, which we have now been working on, which is first and foremost simplifying your inclusionary zoning ordinance and coming up with a way to sort of help people in Gloucester. The situation you folks have is true really throughout the Boston metro area, in the communities that are on the edge, where the incomes of people living in the community today are just not at all like what the incomes are of the households closer to Boston. And of course, the cities in that area, the more densely populated places where there are more households, that's what's really driving the median for the whole region. But when you get out into the outlying areas, the income limits don't make more sense. So trying to come up with a way to kind of make inclusionary zoning not only work for Chapter 40B purposes, but also for you, was an important point in the HPP. Reducing barriers to accessory dwelling units. You're probably aware there's been a statewide conversation going on about ADUs, so-called, for quite a while now. They're specifically addressed in the new economic development bill that Governor Baker signed as well. So the city's been kind of cutting edge on this. We have worked on some proposals to make ADUs simpler to do, at the same time also building in some design standards to make sure they fit within the existing neighborhoods. Cleaning up the table of uses for two-family dwellings. Your zoning ordinance has an interesting approach to regulating two-family dwellings, and it could be so much easier. So one of the proposals you'll eventually see will be around kind of cleaning all that up. Adjusting the dimensional regulations in your zonings that have the effect of discouraging three-family housing in the higher density districts where really you already have it. And it would make sense to kind of, from a smart growth perspective, to encourage more of that in those neighborhoods. Downtown zoning, of course, facilitating mixed use buildings with upper story residential, and then mixed use density around the train. Again, the new economic development bill, I think, is going to make it easier for communities like yours to think about how you want to deal with the train station area and have some zoning that will actually work. So that's kind of what's going to be rolling out. Next slide, Greg.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's all right. Focusing on creating additional housing from the existing stock. Anything you can do to think about how you can reuse what you already have, repurpose what you have, and intensify in those areas makes a lot of sense. So for the ADUs in particular, which inherently rely on existing stock, The proposal you're eventually going to see talks about allowing them as of right. Owner occupied, of course, the buildings must be. There would be a minimum rental period of 30 days, and this is to address a concern that often comes up around whether ADUs will be essentially used as short-term rental units. There will be a landscape buffer in the zoning along the lot line closest to the driveway so that neighbors don't end up essentially with parking right up against the lot line. There'll have to be a dedicated landscape buffer to kind of define the lot line and sort of protect the neighborhood from the additional, or neighbors, closest to the property, from additional activity. There will be design details left to the planning board in the form of a guidance document, because you really don't want to burden your zoning with a lot of stuff that 6 months later you may want to tweak a little bit and you don't want to have to go back and change the zoning. So the zoning would allow the planning board to essentially adopt some design guidelines and lay all of that out in what we call a guidance document. There would be a limit, of course, of 1 ADU per lot, and standards to be met for what we call detached ADUs, which are sometimes thought of as cottages, but they're accessory dwellings in a building separate from the single family home. So the standards to address those in a way that will sort of mitigate the impact on the neighborhood will include things like what the setback requirements will be and what their height limit will be, so that someone doesn't have essentially 2 independent principal dwelling units right next door. ZBA would remain available to grant special permits for ADUs that can't meet the as of right requirements in the zoning. So there's basically, it says, here's what you can do. If you can do these things as of right, then you can have an ADU as of right. If you need relief, you still have to go to the Board of Appeals. Next one, Greg. So these are just some examples. As you may be familiar, Salem's been working on this for a while. These are some of the graphics from the public education work they did, kind of different ways that an ADU can materialize, above a garage or through the conversion of a garage, as a standalone unit, again, what we sometimes call a cottage, or in a basement or attic conversion, that meets code. And these are kind of different examples of what those look like. And when done properly, they really are almost a seamless addition to a neighborhood. Future dimensional work for the 1, 2, and 3 family dwellings. We're looking at ways to kind of align the dimensional standards in your zoning to provide essentially 2 family homes in all districts without increasing the lot area requirements. Just allow them everywhere. Considering 1 lot width requirement consistent with frontage requirements for the zoning districts, trying to get some regularity and predictability in these dimensional controls. Considering an increased allowance for height as of right under some circumstances, and considering 3 family as of right in certain areas. These kinds of proposals really address supply, whereas inclusionary zoning is about getting affordability that occurs with supply. These are the tools that actually get the supply. So they all kind of work together. Greg?
Oh, did I jump? Nope, I didn't.
So again, other proposals we're still working on, addressing kind of zoning capacity, zoning in areas that have capacity, such as downtown or around the train station, looking at options for multifamily development in the downtown area, revisiting parking regulations that may deter or prohibit multifamily or mixed uses. That is one of the most common barriers I find to multifamily development in any community, is the parking requirements. And we need to kind of look at those to make sure they make sense on the one hand, but don't become such an excessive burden that they frustrate what might otherwise be efforts to make multifamily a little bit easier to do. And then transit-oriented development, so-called, meaning development kind of accessible to the train station, very close by. We need to kind of be providing zoning that sort of defines, well, what would the boundaries of that be? What will that look like? What will the performance standards be for someone to be able to get approval to do a TOD project in Gloucester? How do you provide for, quote, streamlined permitting? So the beauty of your role, of course, as counselors is you get to kind of define, well, what were the requirements going to be for this zoning and how's it going to work? And it becomes somebody else's headache to make it actually, to actually administer it. So we need to be thinking about what is that streamlined permitting going to look like? You think of it as an efficient way to get a yes or a no. Not that everybody gets a yes, but rather, how do you have a permitting process that's efficient? And then we're wrestling with this question of, is it going to be an overlay district, meaning something that just kind of rides above the existing zoning, or do we actually create a new district? And some of these decisions kind of haven't been made yet. We're still sort of hashing this out, but these are other things that will be coming.
Thank you, Judy.
No problem.
So that gives you kind of a picture of what's coming. I think I hope the planning board members may have been watching, and I hope they're satisfied with what they asked me to do. And just to give you a sense of next steps, upon your referral, we will advertise for a planning board public hearing on the revision to section 511 on the 18th of February. And I discussed briefly with Joanne looking at dates. Again, that's for you to determine. If it takes more than one session of the planning board, we'll work with the standing committee and then return to the city council for a public hearing. And again, the intention or thought is that planning board members thought it would make sense to, conduct their hearing on this and start to queue up another proposal kind of in its wake. So this spring will be about housing policy, regardless of how the disposition of the proposals. That will be a focus. I think it's a great opportunity and time to do it. Again, the priority on the inclusionary was really because we are continuing to see projects. This is a market that people do want to develop in. People want to move here. People want to move within Gloucester. So it's important to take that first step. And then these other options, again, are really, as Judy pointed out, on the production side of things. So I don't know how much you want to get into questions right now. Again, anything that you ask now is irrelevant to the public hearing process, which we'll conduct over the next several weeks. But that's what I had for you for this evening.
And I actually do have to sign off because
Okay.
I have to jump
Thanks,
on.
Judy.
Thank you, Judy. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much.
All right, councilor questions. Councilor Holmgren.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Thank you, Greg, and thanks to Judy. I'm sorry she had to sign off. I'm so thrilled that this is finally coming to fruition. This has been a really long process. I'm privileged to have been part of it, and I'm not going to bore you by bending your ears, but just thank you all very much. And I did have one question, which I think Judy hit on, and she may have answered it already. Governor Baker did sign the economic development bill with the Housing Choice Act elements in it. But it sounds like she thinks we're sort of in lockstep with that already. When we start to sink our teeth into this in P&D, are we going to need to consider any elements of that bill when we adopt these changes, or when we hopefully adopt these changes, Greg?
So I was actually going to suggest that maybe on your next agenda, or maybe a couple from now, to really focus a little of attention, maybe with a brief presentation on that, or maybe it's something that will be provided for information to the council. What was passed a couple of weeks ago does have very broad implications for all the communities in Massachusetts. It is the first time, I think, in 30 plus years that 40A has actually been amended. It was interesting for that to actually happen within the economic development bill. It was not the full suite of proposals that have been out there for the better part of 10 years and worked on as zoning reform around housing. But there's very specific things that before, not in this particular instance, but as we consider amendments that potentially increase housing stock through relaxation of dimensions or new uses as of right, that simple majority was one of the elements that passed, and was also, the governor took the executive power to make it effective immediately. So any action that the council takes on a zoning amendment related to housing that will increase density or relax dimensions will only require a simple majority. There are other provisions around train stations, and because we have them, not all communities are affected. So that's something that we'll have to be looking at fairly carefully. There are ties to grant programs if we don't take certain actions. So we're having discussions around that already. So I think in a lot of ways we're already aligned, but the devil is in the details. But so there's definitely several provisions that we'll have to update the council on.
Thank you, Greg.
Anything else, Jen? All set? Councilor Cox?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Craig, for doing the presentation. And Judy, it was amazing. Great. Really want to extend my gratitude to Councilor Holmgren from being on this. I know it's very time consuming. So you did a beautiful job. It was wonderful. Super excited about having all of this. Greg and I have been working together for 10 years now. So to see some of the things that we talked about for Ward 2 coming true this year is absolutely amazing, and I appreciate it. If we could get a copy of the slides
Yes.
sent to the clerk's office, that would be great. There's so much to digest through all of this. I don't really have any questions at this point, but I look forward to seeing the meeting on the 18th and then having you back before us to make all this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Council Gilman.
Thank you. Echo what Councilor Cox just said. So I guess I have a process question to Greg. On page 96 of tonight's packet, it talks about the 5 strategies to be considered in the context of the overall goal, but they would be reviewed and discussed individually in public hearings. So
Yes.
my procedural question is, does that mean that the 5 unique strategies are going to be broken down and so that they'll come in a certain order for first through planning board and then through referred to P&D and full council, or will they be considered? Maybe you can just describe that a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that was the intent this evening, to kind of give you a window into the different things that are being worked on. They're obviously very, that will specifically affect different areas of the ordinance, and there'll be amendments in their own right. Every time we propose a change to a section, that we go through that process. Some of them are a little bit more mature than others. So I would anticipate that the ADU ordinance would be something that will come on the heels of this discussion, and then focus on some of the dimensional work around 1, 2, and 3 family. The TOD and the downtown zoning are kind of big pieces, which will probably, just because of the area that's affected by them, and also a lot of detail that will go into it, would come later. So I think, again, it's probably going to be in that order of the ADU. Again, a lot of discussion about it, a lot of tweaking of that ordinance to get it into the shape that it's in. But that, again, will be initiated by the planning board after this process starts to get underway with the consideration of the inclusionary housing amendment. So they each require their own public hearing, rather than trying to take all of these potential amendments and put them in front of the council. I think it's just impossible to try to digest. And it also, they're very different, and they have different impacts. So again, the intention was to give you a broad overview this evening of what's to come, but then initiate them in a cadence that will make sense for bandwidth for people and for the public to have the opportunity to comment on each one of them in their own public hearings.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Val. Barry, Councilor Pat had his hand up first, and then Councilor O'Hara. Go ahead, Barry.
Hi, thank you, Greg and Jen and all for all the work being put into this. I think I already have on my schedule a traffic commission meeting for that evening. And I didn't see it addressed a lot, but I'm hoping at some point that we're not only looking at affordability on this, et cetera, but every time we have a project that comes before us, there are always the parking issues. And I'm hoping that as we continue to tweak this plan, that we can address issues as to how many parking units, parking spaces they have to be per unit, and maybe for different, as every time we come before us with a project, it seems that it's we're not where we were, say, 25 years ago with motor vehicles. So just to put a little you know, a little mark on your mind to go ahead and see if we can include that in our discussions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And I just want to remind Council Pat and Greg, a couple of years ago, we did change the ordinance to allow compact car parking. So I don't know if that will help any of these traffic issues where people get a parking spot with their compact cars. They'll take up less space, but I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys to let you know that that was voted by the council a couple of years ago. Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you. I just, so I don't know what just happened. Sorry about that. I just want to mimic what Councilor Pett just mentioned in part as far as parking. It's an issue which I think is going to come to light very quickly when Halyard Apartments and the YMCA open up. You know, we're living in a different world today. Obviously, a year ago, we weren't. Today, we are. I spoke to a gentleman the other day who they're looking to negotiate out of their $40,000 a month office space that they rent because they're finding that they can operate just fine, everyone operating from home. So with that said, the MBTA ridership, you know, no one knows how the world's going to shake out after everyone's vaccinated and the pandemic hopefully runs its course. But I think based on what I just said about the gentleman and the $40,000 a month rental that they're looking to negotiate out of, they're not the only ones. So how's that going to impact people working from home? So I think we're similar to everything. We're going to have to be looking at potential changes and keep our eyes wide open and just listening and trying to adapt as things do change. But I think Councilor Pett and the parking is a huge issue. We look downtown and, you know, people are adding apartment here and there, and the parking's always an issue. You know, we throw a foot of snow into it, and parking is even more of an issue. So I think that's probably one of the foremost. The natural resources of water, making sure we have enough water to accommodate the addition of housing. I think this is a problem or an issue which we have to look at all the factors that play into it. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor Nolan.
Greg, Jody, great job tonight. I know Jody's not here to hear this. It's very important for us to move forward with this type of affordable housing changes. There are a few things that were brought up, parking, which I totally understand. One of the other things you mentioned, barriers, and I just want to touch upon that. We're not talking about conservational barriers. We're not going to be building on wetlands or trying to exceed state guidelines or anything like that. This is going to be something that's done within the happiness of everybody for conservation and riverfront acts and stuff like that, and just trying to find the best use of property to make it accessible.
Thank you, Sean. Any other councilor questions? Hold on, Val, before I want to make sure everybody else got around first. Seeing none, go ahead, Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Counselor. So one of the things that continues to annoy me, and I know everyone in the community feels similarly, is when we talk about the area median income of the metropolitan rate. Greg, you had said that it's 119K versus 65K. And then when we start talking about that 80%, it just creates a like, oh my God, it just doesn't seem like it's fitting right with the metropolitan rate. So my question, I've asked this before, but what can we do to lobby this more with our legislators possibly? So this could be changed at the state level, because it just seems like we're all struggling with the same issue over and over again. And there's got to be some way that we can escalate this, because the other 100 communities that you said are, you know, in a similar situation than us, there are probably some that are more adversely affected than us, and we should be able to do something to make it right. So you don't have to answer it now, but it's just one of those nagging issues that really creates a lot of angst. And I'd love to see what we could do to take a leadership role, maybe do a resolution and send it to some of those other 100 communities and say, let's join together and work with our, you know, Ann Margaret and Bruce and try to get this heard. So
I can tell you that I actually raised this issue just last week at the North Shore Task Force, which is 15 communities on the North Shore sub-region of MAPC. And we're working on our work plan for the next year. And I raised this issue of, you know, does anyone else think that this is something we should try to tackle? And it's actually at the federal level. It is Housing and Urban Development that sets those statistics. But I think it's another important route to consider. You know, we're kind of fighting those numbers in some ways in how we're trying to address things. And there are communities in Massachusetts that have their own income levels that define affordability for their community. And there are some, you know, broken down smaller regions. It's a very, you know, heterogeneous group of communities. And as Judy has pointed out, for a community that's almost half the median income, it just doesn't make any sense.
Anything else?
thank you. It's good to hear that you've been discussing it with your colleagues. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Val. Any other councilor questions? All right, seeing none. Greg, thank you. Appreciate it. Judy, also.
Thank you
keep
very
up the
much.
Good work, and feel free to join us anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
The next order of business is confirmation of new appointments.
All right, Councilor Nolan has asked me to read the motions, so I'm going to read the motions. Ordinance Administration recommended that the City Council, by roll call vote, appoint Kerry McKenna to the Community Preservation Committee, term to expire 2/14/24, and I so move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilor LeBlanc, seconded by Councilor Nolan. Any councilor discussion? Councilor Holmgren?
I am thrilled that we get to appoint Carrie to this commission. She is eminently qualified, and I am just so excited that she's going to lend her expertise and her love for this city to this committee. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, Jen. Anybody else? Hold on. Councilor Gilman, Councilor Cox, and then Councilor Memhard. Go ahead, Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Counselor. I too think that Carrie is just a tremendous candidate. She's one of my constituents. We work together on another board, and knowing all the great work that she did for the chamber and the things that she's learned about the city, she's just a great person with a lot of drive and enthusiasm, and she does what she says she's going to do. So I'm really happy about doing this appointment and supporting Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. Councilor Cox?
I love working with Carrie at the chamber. Just as long as you don't give her a big pair of scissors, I think she'll work out just fine. And as chair of budget and finance and working closely with the CPC committee on their applications, I look forward to seeing you on the 4th and working with you for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Councilor Memhard?
I can only really just echo the comments that were just made and welcome Carrie to the Community Preservation Committee. It's great to have you continuing to be actively involved in the community and our development going forward. So thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, Scott. Councilor McCarthy?
I worked with Kerry a lot over the years, and thank you, Kerry, for volunteering your time, and it's going to be great to have you in that role. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councilor O'Hara, did you want to say something? I didn't know if you had your hand up. No?
No, I want to thank Carrie as well and thank all the boards and commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Barry, Councilor Pat?
Yep, just again, thanking and echoing everyone else's words for working with Kerry. I got to disagree with Councilor Cox. I think when we actually get back to real live city hall council meetings, that we should invite Kerry to come with her pair of scissors, and we should cut the ribbon again to start our live meetings.
All right, thank you, Barry. I agree. There's nobody else I would trust more with a big pair of scissors than Kerry. All right, that being said, I will call for the roll call vote. Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes, and thanks.
Councilor Nolan,
Of course.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett,
Yes, and thank you for continuing, Kerry.
and Councilor Cox.
A definite big yes from me.
All right, awesome. Thank you, folks. A motion passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Kerry. And if there's anything you need from the council or the mayor's office, feel free to reach out and we'll help you with the Community Preservation Committee. All right. Next order of business is ordinance administration voted unanimously to recommend that the city council appoint Karen Korteski, fulfilling the unexpired term to the Gloucester Cultural Council, term to expire 2/14/22. Karen, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. As you know, the city council knows Carrie very well, so I didn't ask her to introduce herself or tell us a little bit about them, but could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. So good evening, everybody. I'm new to the Gloucester area, relatively new. I came here in 2019. I previously lived in Arlington, Mass. And when I was in Arlington, I ran a private art studio where I taught lessons to children. I worked as the director on as the Arlington Youth and Health Safety Coalition. I directed the Arlington Center for the Arts. So my career has been built on education and promoting the arts with young people. Also in Arlington, I served on the Cultural Council there for 2 terms. And received 3 grants for my public art projects. So here in Gloucester, I've been very excited to get involved in the community and help in any way I can. And I thought this would be a great opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So previously I moved a motion. Did I get a second? I don't think I did.
Second.
All right, moved by
Second.
Councilor LeBlanc, seconded by Councilor Nolan. I just wanted to make sure that we, don't remember if we got a second or not. All right, any councilor discussion? All right, Councilor Holmgren.
Thank you, Karen, for serving. And I'm very excited to see what you do here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I know my last name is a little tricky, but it's pronounced Koretsky.
Koretsky, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Appreciate
It doesn't bother me, just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, I get it all the time. LeBlanc, I don't know. I don't know what to call myself sometimes, so I appreciate the correction.
No
we'll
problem.
make sure we pronounce it. Councilor Cox.
Thank you very much for stepping up to serve on this council. We welcome you to the city and we look forward to working with you. We look forward to actually meeting people in person sooner or later, hopefully.
Exactly.
Me too. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Karen, same here. And if there's anything you need from any of the city council, please reach out to any of us. We'll help you. We'll help you with whatever you need to do on the cultural council. We have an outstanding cultural council. You're going to be amazed at what we do, and you're going to immerse yourself, and you're going to find yourself that you're thankful for volunteering for this committee. So,
you.
like I said, anything you need from us or the mayor's office, definitely reach out, and we'll help you in any way we can.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Councilor
you.
Gilman, yeah.
Oh, I'm just waiting for the roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I'm gonna make the roll call. Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holmgren,
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc, yes. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Welcome and yes.
Counselor Nolan,
Welcome and absolutely.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
Counselor Pett,
Thank you for serving and welcome and yes.
and Counselor Cox.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank
Up
you so
next-
much.
Thank you, Karen. Like I said, if you need anything, reach out to any one of us.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Up
night.
next, we have Ordinance Administration voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council appoint Mark Poland to fulfill an unexpired term to the Open Space and Recreation Committee, term to expire 2/14/23, and I so move.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Blank, seconded by Councilor O'Hara. Hi, Mark, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good evening, and I welcome the opportunity to serve.
Nice to see you. I know there's some of us that know you, some of us may not know you. Want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be here?
Well, I've been a Gloucester resident for 25 years, and I've worked at Applied Materials for the last 32 years. I've coached sports and was on the Gloucester Little League board. I'm familiar with the trails and fields, and so I thought open space would be a good open space committee would be a good place to start. I understand there's some important issues in front of us now, and I look forward to weighing in on them and working with people in the community. I got 2 kids in school in Gloucester, and it really is a great place. And I understand that outdoor spaces and open space mean a lot to people, and it's important that we listen to all the points of view and weigh in and make Gloucester as great as it can be.
Thank you, Mark. Any councilor discussion? Councilor Pett?
Yes, just thank you to Mark for stepping up. I've had the pleasure of working with Mark on a couple of issues on the back shore and through Varian or their successor here, et cetera. And it's always been very pleasant, and I want to thank him for stepping up to continue to contribute to the community.
Thank you, Barry. Councilor Gilman?
So I know Mark's family. I know his 2 sons, and I think it's awesome to have someone representing open space that has youth on their team. And I think it just brings a really good perspective. And like Councilor Pett, I've worked with Mark on several business issues, and he's easy to work with. He also works in the olden days when we were going to the gym. He's a member of my gym, so we would always say hello to each other on the equipment, but that's a thing of the past now. But anyway, I will be supporting him, and thank you, Mark, for putting your name in the hat. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Val. You don't want to date yourself with the olden days. Don't ever use that term again.
Well, this
Just so you know.
pandemic just is not ending, so I'm just I'm missing the gym.
I hear you. Any other councilor discussion? All right, seeing none. Mark, thank you for serving. I explained earlier at O&A last week that it's the volunteers that do these boards, commissions, and committees that help, not only the city council, but the mayor's office. And we appreciate you stepping up. And if there's anything that the council or the mayor's office can help guide you, feel free to ask. We're always here for you. All right, seeing that, I will call for the roll call. Councilor Gilman?
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren?
Yes, and thank you, Mark.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Councilor McCarthy?
Yes, and thank you.
Councilor Memhard?
Yes, Mark, thank you very much.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes, Mark, thank you.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Pett?
Thank you, Mark. Yes, and thank the mayor for putting forward some wonderful nominees and volunteers. Thank you.
Here, Barry. And Councilor Cox?
Definitely yes. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. And motion passes on a roll call vote. 9 in favor, zero opposed. All right, thank you, councilors, and thank you for the appointments. We appreciate your time. Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
The next order of business is the consent agenda.
Are there any councilors that would like to pull any matters off the consent agenda? Councilor Gilman?
Thanks, Counselor. Yes, I'd like to pull off under applications, the first item, RZ 2021-001, amend GZO section 5.11, inclusionary housing requirement in accordance with GZO section 1.11.2A.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to pull anything off the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, Councilor Gilman?
So in receiving the memorandum from the planning board regarding the initiation of amendments to 5.11 inclusionary housing requirements, it's referred out to P&D and planning board. Given that the notice to all abutters in the city in this situation is impracticable, I move to waive the notice to the abutters under GZO section 1.11.4B to set the public hearing for March 9th, 2021, and refer this matter to the Planning and Development Standing Committee and the Planning Board. And I so move.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gilman, seconded by Councilor Memhard. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I will accept I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Holmgren, seconded by Councilor Cox. All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett,
Yes.
and Councilor Cox.
Yes.
Motion passes to accept the consent agenda as amended on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Is there any councilors that'd like to pull anything off the unanimous consent agenda?
We don't have one.
Oh,
We don't
I'm
have one.
sorry. Madam
Okay,
Clerk?
and can I just interrupt?
Yes.
When Councilor Gilman pulled off that item agenda, that was supposed to be voted separately.
Okay.
Her item, you vote the consent agenda as amended, and then after we go back and to vote to waive the notice to abutters.
Okay, we'll go back and we'll go back to Councilor Gilman's amendment. So on the amendment, we all understand the amendment, correct? All right, on Councilor Gilman's amendment, Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett,
Yes.
and Councilor Cox.
Yes.
Thank you. The amendment to the consent agenda passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, and then we have the consent agenda, which we already passed as amended. We just wanted to make sure we got Councilor Gilman's amendment. Madam Clerk, we have a next order of business, please.
Next order of business is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of January 21st.
Councilor Cox.
Thank you. I present a consent agenda for everything that was on our agenda. If anybody has any questions or would like to remove anything, please do so now. Seeing none, I move the consent agenda.
Seconded.
So moved by Councilor Cox, seconded by Councilor Memhard. Any discussion?
Nope, just receiving lots of grants. So
Okay.
lovely day at Budget and Finance.
Roll call vote, Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc. Yes, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Wait, no, I know. I got something I want to say after this, so I'm thinking of something else to say. Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett,
Yes.
and Councilor Cox.
Yes.
All right, motion passes to accept the budget and finance consent agenda, passes on a roll call vote. 9 in favor, 0 opposed. I just want to circle back to the consent agenda. We have several department heads management that we voted in this evening. In that consent agenda, we have Holly Doug Willow, we have Bill Sanborn, Mike Hale, Adam Kukuru, Ryan Knowles, and Gary Johnstone.
And Chip.
And we have Chip. I don't see Chip on here, but we do have him on the consent agenda. I just wanted to show my appreciation for your management team, Mayor. I'm not running for council again, so this will be my last appointment for the managers. So I just want to put out my gratitude that we have had over the past 10 years as being a city councilor. And I just want to pay my respect to you guys and everybody that has helped me become the city councilor I am today. So I just want to thank the management team. Kudos to you, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. Councilor.
I'm going to take this opportunity to also say that I will not be running for re-election, and it has been a pleasure to appoint you all as many times as I have been able to. So, Mayor Taken, you have an amazing team. I look forward to treating you all with a large amount of respect for this last year and appreciation for doing the job that you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Once again, we appreciate everything you've done for us. So thank you to management, and thank you to the mayor. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is the Special Ordinance and Administration Standing Committee report of January 19th.
We have no items under this heading. Next order of
Next
business.
is Next is the Planning and Development Standing Committee report of January 20th.
Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Joanne. On a motion by Council Holgram, seconded by Council Pat, the Planning and Development Committee voted by roll call, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, to recommend that the City Council accept the withdrawal of RZ 2020-001, proposed creation of a commuter residential overlay district to all lots currently zoned EB and around Maplewood Avenue and Whistle Stop Way without prejudice. And I so move.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gilman, seconded by Councilor Holmgren. Any councilor discussion? Councilor Gilman, none? Okay, pretty self-explanatory. I'll call for the roll call vote. Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes, I remembered this time.
Good job.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett,
Yes.
and Councilor Cox.
Yes.
Motion passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is public hearing 2020-010, Special City Council Permit 2020-002, Essex Avenue, number 99A, map 216, lot 126, Gloucester zoning ordinance section 3.1.6B, building heights in excess of 35 feet, section 2.3.4, parentheses 13, marine related service, storage or repair, limited primarily in the MI district to commercial fishing vessels, section 5.5 lowland requirements, section 5.5.2 and section 5.5.3 in the.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will open the public hearing and continue it to February 9th, 2021. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
The memorandum from the city clerk requesting the city council set the date of the municipal preliminary election to September 14th, 2021 for council vote.
All right, I will entertain a motion to set the municipal preliminary election to September 14th, 2021.
Second.
So moved.
Been moved by Councilor
Jamie, you
Cox.
seconded before I even moved it.
Been moved by Councilor Cox, seconded by Councilor O'Hara. Any councilor discussion? Obviously, this is pretty self-explanatory. Councilor, I'll call for the roll call. Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc, yes. Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
Counselor Pat,
Yes.
and Counselor Cox.
Yes.
Motion passes to accept the preliminary election, municipal preliminary election to the September 14th, 2021 passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Counselor Gilman, do you want to?
Thank you, Counselor.
Yep.
So, as always, Joanne is, Sinos, our city clerk, is being very proactive. And one of the things that we need to do right now is make sure that the schools are set for any election in 2021. In this case, Plum Cove, because we need to have an alternative spot to the Lanesville Community Center. So Joanne has already mentioned this to Superintendent Lummis. And the next step will be that we will ask the school committee to approve this. And I guess that's all, Joanne. Do you have anything to add to that? I think Plum Cove School worked remarkably well. And we just need that size of a facility, not knowing how things are going to be with social distancing through 2021. Did I forget anything to mention?
No, I just wanted to mention that the July legislative bill of last year that had the amendments for elections for 2020 was amended, and it's only valid until March 31st because of the local towns that are having their annual meeting. And I'm waiting till after March 31st to see what the state legislatures will vote for elections for the fall for the cities. So I thought we'd get this in the queue and also ask the schools to use Plum Cove again because due to COVID, I don't think we'll be able to go back to Lanesville this year. And also when the new school, the East Gloucester School demolition starts, we'll have to start on Ward 1, 2. And we have a couple of recommendations that we'll probably bring up after the March 31st when I'm trying to make sure the state legislators have everything in place before I move forward on that. And hopefully it won't be 2 months before the election. And that's it.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Anything else? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Is councilor request to the mayor.
All right, Councilor Cox.
Thank you. I noticed that she's no longer on the call, but I do want to say a very big happy birthday to Vanessa Krausick. It's her birthday today, so I know the council sent her flowers, but I just wanted to recognize her here because we do that for a lot of the city staff. So happy birthday, V. A couple questions have come up in the last couple days regarding the vaccination clinics. There's a lot of concern that now that the elderly are bumped up on the list, which is probably going to start next week with 75 and 65. So there's a lot of concern that the closest location is Beverly, and they're worried about transportation or people that aren't able to drive, being in cars with people that are more out in public. There's just a lot of concern. So I'm going to push again to try to get a vaccination clinic for the city of Gloucester. Rose Baker seemed to work really well for the vaccines for the first responders. So if there's anything that we can do as a city to pull together to try to do a regional one in Gloucester, it would be really good for our area, Cape Ann in particular. Like I said, the closest one is Beverly, and there's absolutely no public transportation to the location. So it's on Tozer Road. So if anybody's familiar with that, if they've ever gone to Comcast, it's not anywhere near public transportation. So I myself would be willing to drive people, but again, it's hard to do when I work full time. So it's, we need to think about trying to do that on a regional basis. And charter review is supposed to happen with O&A in any year that ends in 0. I know that we were all very overwhelmed with 2020. So I know it's been discussed, but I'd like to have a better update on where we're at with that. It doesn't have to happen now, Joanne.
Okay.
I can reach out to you at the office too, but just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that it was supposed to happen last year. I know there's something in the works, but I have come across a grant, a best practice grant that could help us fund this, because I know every change it costs a lot of money to do changes. So if anybody has any ideas on what they want to see changed, I think we should start working on that. Anyway, so just charter review definitely needs to happen. I have a lot of things that I'd like to put up for review with O&A, so before I leave, but that would be really good and productive. Thank you.
Melissa, I was on the call with the mayor and our public health agent earlier this week. Mayor's on the line with us. Mayor, do you want to chime in on the vaccination sites?
Absolutely. The city of Gloucester planned on having one. We did our first responders and we also did it regional. And then the remaining, we did just Gloucester residents, Gloucester businesses. We actually purchased a refrigerator to get ready to hold 5,000 vaccines so we could have our own here. And unfortunately that when you put in your order, we put in for this time 500, we only got 300. And from then on, everyone got the report, you only allowed 100. The only ones that are going to get more than 100 is the major ones, like the one in Danvers behind Liberty Tree and all of that. We're not going to be getting unless the vaccine. And when I was talking to the governor, like he said, we get 80,000 vaccines weekly. We need about 250 because my concern was, like I said to him, this summer we're going to be bombarded again. Whether when they say destination Gloucester, discover Gloucester, they discovered Gloucester. So I says that's not fair. My seniors have not been out since March. Mentally, physically, they need to go out. It's just not fair. When can I expect, my DPW, because they're out there with the people, they're there, my teachers, I mean, we're all aggravated. I have to compliment and thank Adam Kukuru, because Adam Kukuru, thank you. Because there was a lot of seniors who are veterans didn't want to go to Bedford, even though it was going to be transportation, but you can't drive them individually. It was going to be, we have a van, but they didn't, their family members didn't want them with other people on a van to get there. So that was really, so we're working on a clinic either here because they can do 500. So we're looking here or Manchester, close as we can get it. But we're trying to look for a space. It's going to be on a Saturday, either the 6th or the 13th. Adam's working closely with Karen. Karen has set up like I said, a site. We were doing 100 at a time, but 100. I mean, and we're very concerned because we have 6 elderly projects. I mean, we rather do bubbles, meaning that we have a nurse and her staff go to, let's say, Sheedy Park and do it there. So they don't have to come out and then go to McPherson and then go to the other one. So that would be a separate clinic. Then we do that. We had a lot of plans, but until, like he says, until these vaccines. So I did put out a request from all of us to our federal legislators and say, you know what? This cannot be. We cannot have that. My explanation, some of the things I was talking to Senator Mackey's office, he was saying that, one of the pharmaceuticals did pull out because it wasn't going to hit the second mutant. So we're hoping Johnson & Johnson, which is a 1 shot, not 2. Now, if anyone's listening and they said, well, I already got my first shot, what's going to happen? That's guaranteed to us. So if you already got a shot, no matter where it is in Massachusetts, you will automatically already set for a second appointment to get your second shot. Same thing with this 300 coming up, they will get their second shot. and then we go from there. But we're trying. I appreciate it. I really would think that if maybe people would, and it's not the state, it's what they give us by population. And I've been arguing with, along with, not arguing with, but along with other mayors, because Essex County, we were classified as more, unhealthy, let's say. Our seniors, co-pays, deductibles, and insurance premiums are actually higher because we are Essex County and they say that we have more unhealthy people. So then they should be doing Essex County. And that's why all the argument we did, we actually got Danvers. That's the closest right now that for open up to all without CVS here is still not doing it. And we don't know because if they haven't got stopped on some of the vaccines, it's 100. And I said, I would love to, open up regionalized like we did with the first one. I can't. I have to put Gloucester residents first, like I said. And as soon as it opens up, we're ready to go. We're ready to go. We've got that team. I have to tell you, Karen Carroll and her team and everyone that's going down at the senior center, that will probably remain the place. And I want to let you know that we also asked if we could do like 500, where can we go? How do you do it? Because you have to understand when you get the vaccine, you have to relax for 15 minutes. You can't go anywhere. So they have to watch you because they don't know. So we even asked Cruiseport, and I says, we'll pay rent, what it is. And she says, for the city of Gloucester, for all that, you can have it free. So we have everything in place. Gorton's, other companies reached out. We can do those little bubbles. Give us the vaccine, we're ready to go. Without that, we try. We do have, like I said, cater with that seniors on the go, that bus, but a lot of seniors don't want to get on and out of the bus with somebody else. And that's the whole thing. I don't have individual, and individually we can't do it because of liability, and the parents, if we can get the appointments, but the problem is, I'm going to be honest with you, is people who don't have family members, how do they get on the computer to make their appointment? So we're working on that too. And the Gloucester Housing Authority is working on that. They should have been taken care of by the state. So yes, and we're working on everything. It's frustrating. It's actually very frustrating that here we are, we got our refrigerator going, you guys are all going, we're all going, we think here it is, and they keep changing the phases. So it's really difficult because we just don't know when it's going to change. So thank you very much. Thank you for your support, Melissa. That was great. And let people know, and you can give me a ride.
No.
Yeah.
I've driven with you. That's not fun.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. We're moving right along. Councilor requests of the mayor, Councilor Pat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And to the mayor, and I'd like to be part of this just because of the fact that I worked with Senator Tarr and Mass DOT for over 15 years. But there's three things that need to be addressed, I think, quite quickly in reference to DOT. Number one, I assume people are aware, but they're renumbering the highways. And just so people are aware, the numbering will end at what's currently exit 12 at Rust Island. And DOT no longer considers the remainder of 128 from Rust Island down to East Main Street, Bass Avenue as a limited access highway. So it will not have numbers, etc. So some of the signage that's on 128 is not only irrelevant and will be changed, but we need to be able to have some input as to what the signs will say. Like it says exit 14 for Gloucester Harbor. Will it just be the next number? Is that where we want to send all the traffic? Then the issue becomes also with the truck traffic coming into town. So we need to have a meeting together, decide where that's going. And I would think you would, besides the city staff of the police, fire, and DPW and traffic commission, maybe include the Chamber and Discover Gloucester as to what signage. Same thing with that part of the highway and the new school. There are issues at the Eastern Avenue 128 intersection with the lights for crossing, and that's going to take some time to get some changes made. And we need to make some of those changes by the time the school is ready to be opened. And we need to address it. So I think that would be an important part of that meeting. And then lastly, and it's in relation as well to the school, but the issue of the truck traffic there down on Eastern Avenue. I have a new thing that I've had some discussion with someone at DOT that might be a way of getting this accomplished. So I'd like to bring it forward to the administration and ask the mayor to put together a meeting so these types of things can be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you. I want to thank Council President LeBlanc for pushing the schools to make their meetings more visible and the documentation more visible. With that said, I was wondering if our council president would consider allowing the traffic commission to speak on the schools, as they were not a part of the process. Also, I'd like to thank Councilor LeBlanc, who participated in the Red Cross blood donation collection last night. The Red Cross collected 44 units, which will help 132 men, women, and children live another day. So thank you to everyone who participated. The Magnolia Library will have 34 collections in the calendar year 2021. So I ask everyone to think hard about donating. I know Councilor LeBlanc, Councilor Cox, and many others are regulars, and it's such an awesome feeling to donate. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor Nolan.
I'd love to donate, but they don't want my blood. Sorry, I can't help you. And Councilor Cox, the only time I saw you ride with the mayor and you were driving, and it was very efficient. So I can't say that you can't ride with her, because you took her for a nice ride and did a good job. I would like to mention that we have a lot of things in front of the city. It's not a one matter type situation. We're working with new territories. We have a pandemic. There's a lot of communication situations, and it's going to be a very financial tough year ahead of us. We look to development problems. We look to the fire range. We look to cluster developments. We look for the housing production plan. Simple things as parking tickets and how we're going to mandate seasonal parking. There's a lot of issues that come before us, and every one of us work very hard at doing what we do, and it takes an awful lot. And Steve LeBlanc, we will definitely miss you, and Councilor Cox as well. You're both excellent assets to the city, whether people know it or not. I'm going to miss you guys, and we have a year still, but I'm going to use it for both of us, and the city has no idea how much they're going to miss you when you guys are gone.
I'm sorry, you said asset, right?
Right.
Asset.
Just checking.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. Well said about the work that we put into it. It is a lot. So well said. Council Memhard.
I'd just like to say good night, and I'm glad that we're in a Zoom meeting, so none of us have to fight slippery roads out there tonight. So everybody should be careful who's out there, because they are slippery. A little bit of snow.
Thank you. Council McCarthy.
First, I'd like to echo Councilor Cox in wishing Vanessa a happy birthday. She's been a great friend to the council, and hope she has had a good birthday today. Secondly, just informative for the council, I have been sitting in at the request of President LeBlanc. Hey, I had a jump on with the Swing Space Committee with the school committee in the city, and the last meeting of that is tomorrow before it goes to the school committee. So I will reach out to everybody and let them know what I've learned from that.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Councilor Holmgren.
Well, I'm overcome with lots of emotions. Councilor LeBlanc, Councilor Cox, we will miss you and your depth of knowledge and experience. But yes, we have a year. Well said, Councilor Nolan, as well. I just want to say for the parents of girls who are looking for things to do after school, Ocean Alliance is expanding its current robotics club by offering a club just for girls ages 8 and over. And they are looking for expanding diversity in the field of science, technology, engineering, and math. And the goal of the club is to introduce more girls to science and technology and to give them a place to tinker, ask questions, and to not be afraid of making mistakes. The club sessions will be hosted every other week, and for now they're remote. To sign up, please fill out a short form on the Ocean Alliance website, and that's at whale.org. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. And ditto to what everyone else has said about Steve and Melissa and their tenure. It's I've learned a lot from both of you and hope to keep doing that for the next 11 months, but thank you. So I just have a couple of very quick things, just reminders of the site visits this Saturday. Please, 4 of you have booked your sessions, and if you haven't, please let me know. Schoolhouse Road, meet near the YMCA at 8 a.m. and 99A Essex Ave, meet at 9, right in front of the Gull. And if you can be punctual, that would be great, because we want to just get through it. And we'll decide if we need to have a second session. I have received RSVPs from 3 abutters for 99A. So depending on how many counselors are going to be there, I might ask them to come at 9:30 instead of 9, but counselors will have priority to the session that they signed up for. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is just briefly, in the past, we had been getting quarterly summaries of all of our requests to the mayor, so we can kind of take a look at them as a group. And I think that that would be helpful, because we like to be able to see which ones are open, what has been handled, so we're able to just make some follow-up calls and understand what the next step is when we have issues that are important to our residents that just need to be escalated and discussed. I know at one point, Councilor O'Hara mentioned bringing that up early in the meeting when staff was there. If we had some outstanding issues that we wanted to talk about, I don't know if that's necessary, but we just need to make sure that we have a closed loop process. Everyone's working hard, as is every member of city staff, and sometimes our taxpayers need to know that we've done everything possible to bring things forward. And if the answer is no with a request, then we need to be able to get back to them and say the answer is no for whatever reason. And then the final thing that I just wanted to say is thank you, city staff. I mean, this has just been an incredible pandemic, and you just continue to push out deliverables and really important things that's really important to all of us. And one of the things that I will miss about Vanessa is the summaries that she would put out every week of everything that was happening. And, you know, that was just so helpful to have, as driven by the Board of Health. And it's amazing. I know, Mayor, how proud you are of how your team has done on that matter, but I can tell you other communities are not on their game like we are, and it's really a nice thing. The citizens of Gloucester really appreciate that updated information. And I know this week we'll be talking about the clinics and what's going to happen next and summarizing that. This information is so important. People are really edgy right now, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Val. Councilor Cox.
Just real quick, Steve, I recently served on a board with UMass Boston and Watertown, and they're thinking about moving to a city council mayor structure versus city council manager structure that they're in now. It was really neat to see another council do their thing on screen. And one of the things that they did is the vice president called the roll for the president. So if you forget to answer your own response next time, what we can do is start calling, having the vice president call your name. I really thought that was intriguing that that was the way that happened. But
It was all that blood I gave
really
last
nice
night.
to see another council function.
Yeah, I know. I've been logging on to other council meetings and selectmen meetings. It's crazy how,
Yeah.
trying to pick up a little bit. I'm still always learning, even though we've been doing this for so long. It was all that blood I gave last night. I completely forgot where I was. So
Sorry, Jamie, I cheated on you and I went to Manchester by the Sea because I couldn't get an appointment in Magnolia. So good job on you keeping those full.
Yeah, it was pretty busy last night. I was there at 6:30. I didn't get out of there till almost 8 o'clock. I had to wait, and it was a good turnout. So thank you, Jamie, for setting
I
those
saw
up.
a lot of politicking there, Steve. You were talking to everyone.
I had family there. It was nice.
He's jonesing for civil interactions.
No kidding. I don't have any requests this evening. So happy birthday, V.
Motion to adjourn.
Great job, everyone, this
Second.
evening. And we're gonna come on, man. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
LeBlanc guy got
This moved. Hey, be nice to me. My birthday's Thursday. It's been moved and seconded by everyone. I'll call the roll. 50. Councilor Gilman.
Happy birthday, Steve, on Thursday.
you.
Yes, to adjourn the meeting.
Councilor Holmgren.
Yes, happy birthday, special council meeting birthday. Ew.
Yeah, I know. Right? Councilor LeBlanc. Yes. Councilor McCarthy.
I'll see you Thursday to wish you happy birthday. Yes.
Thanks, bud. Councilor Memhard.
Did you shave for your birthday? Was that the deal?
I gotta feel younger. I'm my midlife crisis thing, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan.
Does that mean Thursday you switch to pink weights? And yes.
I'll always be lifting the blue weights. Councilor O'Hara.
Yes, and happy birthday, Steve.
Thank you. Councilor Pat.
Yeah, before I vote, I have to get a commitment from you that you'll make the blood donations for both Sean and I, since they don't want our contributions. So are you going to do that? Okay, thank you. Then my vote is yes.
I'll have him do both arms next time. Councilor Cox.
You're 4 years older than me? Wait a minute.
I said 15.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 50. I was like, oh my God. I thought we were the same age.
50. Yeah.
Wow.
50.
10 years of not knowing that. I almost felt bad, but now I'm over it. And for your birthday present, you give yourself a special city council meeting? You're nuts.
So
Don't you have control over this?
We got to do what we got to do.
Yes.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Great meeting. And I'll see you Thursday. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.